International Comics Collective, only on UCPN.
Hello, everyone. What's going on?
Hello.
Hello out there on a chilly Sunday.
Yes. Welcome to a new ICC on CC. And today, as you can see, what if? What is this? You guys are scaring me. You guys spoke without me. All of a sudden, it's like, I'm put in the middle of this, what sounds like awesome podcast.
Kicking you to the curb. They were kicking you to the curb.
Dave and me were talking behind your back on Skype this morning.
Yep. Yep. Planning, plotting, scheming, all that
sharing a coffee across the river that connects and separates.
Well, cheers to that then. No problem.
Yeah. So, what we were thinking was, I discovered this very cool YouTube channel called Super Void Cinema. That's Super Void Cinema. Give this channel a look. Very well put together videos, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes an hour, sometimes more. And what the guys do, and it's really very detailed, very impressed, they go to certain movies that never got made.
Okay.
And the name Super Void Cinema is, I think, most likely because they focus a little bit more on genre fiction, on superhero movies, and they take you to the obvious candidates like Cameron's Spider-Man that never was, but then they talk about an Iron Man movie that was supposedly to star Tom Cruise. Talk about a Hulk movie that was never made, and my favorite project is Sylvester Stallone's Edgar Allan Poe movie.
What?
Really?
Yeah.
The guy has been trying to get an Edgar Allan Poe movie made for 30 years.
Wow.
It's a wonderful video. Check it out. It's basically when he was a total unknown. What he wanted to do was to challenge himself as a writer. And he started to write an Edgar Allan Poe movie because was how he felt. He was working a day job, cleaning the cages for tigers and stuff. Okay. And then he got home to his wife and she said, well, how was your day? He said, don't talk about it. I need to write now. And he was writing this dark fantasy about Edgar Allan Poe. And Edgar Allan Poe is the star in the movie. There's even some pictures of him dressed as Edgar Allan Poe and his wife dressed as Edgar Allan Poe's wife and stuff like that. And of course, he realized he couldn't star in it because he is no Edgar Allan Poe. But he was really trying to get this made, and it really exists. And I find this very interesting. So this got me the idea to talk a little bit about the idea. What if we were guys pitching a movie script to a studio, and to make this a challenge? How would you pitch me a Conan movie, Al? Or how would you pitch me a New Gods movie, Dave? Or how would you pitch a Howard the Duck movie that works? And so we thought we'd take it very relaxed and talk a little bit about what would our favorite movie be like? How would we do it? How would we approach it? Is it very limited budget, big budget? It's the sky's the limit. How would you go about this?
Oh, that sounds fun. Oh, man, you're picking my brain here. You said one of my favorites there were Howard the Duck. I was actually thinking about something even before, like the better way to bring him in.
So Al, how would Dave, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because, there's not only is it the films that never got made, but there were films that got made, but there was several versions of them that nearly got made beforehand by different people. And a good example would be Dune. And I love David Lynch's version, but a Jodorowsky version would have been pretty
sweet.
Out there.
We had the same thing said about the Starship Troopers, right? That the book is way better than the movie. People were very disappointed with the film.
Yeah, but it was also
I loved
what you also see on this YouTube channel on the Super Void Cinema is they take you to all the different script versions, and it's sometimes amazing how many versions of a script for a movie exist. I'm always reminded of this X-Men First Class movie, which I really like. This started as a Magneto solo movie. And there's still some elements of the Magneto solo movie. The spy, the hunter for the Nazis against the Nazis. That's all from the original script, and they incorporated that into the First Class movie, which I find so interesting. You take bits of pieces from this script, bits of pieces from that script, and you try to bring it all together. Gotcha. And sometimes when we look at movies, $1 million movies, $100 million movies, and say, wow, this sucks. And then you see 20 writers in the credits. And you wonder, why is this sucking so much? Or sometimes they strike out. And of course, you have to name all the writers who produce something of the existing script. There's union arbitration and stuff like that. But there's also many writers in the back whose scripts never get made. Dave?
Yeah, all I was just going to say to that is, unfortunately, not every writer, like you see these films and you see like 10 writers on it. And the chances are there's probably another 10 writers involved in it that don't quite write enough to get a credit. Or are actually paid to write on it, knowing they're not going to get a credit.
Or you have a situation again like with First Class. There was a point in time when this was developed, when they wanted to do this. The OC was very popular as a TV show, and they hired Josh Schwartz to bring in his ideas about young mutants, and he wrote the script for it, and nothing of the script was used, so he never got any credit for it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, I mean, I'm thinking of things like even like the Terminator movies. Arnold Schwarzenegger had his own writers that would read his scripts and go through it, and that's where things like all that Hasta La Vista and I'll Be Back. Most of that was not put in by the acknowledged screenplay writers, but was by Arnold Schwarzenegger's kind of writer he'd bring in, who would just go in and make sure that he had one-liners, would make sure he had these particular lines. There's another great example, which is when they were making Armageddon. A lot of big names in there. Some of them weren't so big at the time, but ended up being bigger. But what they did was the managers of a lot of the actors managed to get their own writers to go in and pump up each individual actor's scene. So it was like he had a little bit more to say. This was a certain lines of dialogue were rewritten, and of course they got very well paid. Like imagine you're rewriting like 3 scenes that are a total of maybe 3 minutes, but you walk away with $20,000.
Yeah,
that's not bad living. That's not bad living.
I think Cameron got paid $3 million for a 75-page treatment. Which never got turned into a movie. And
wait, so you actually get paid even if it doesn't turn into that's because it's not your fault, right?
Well,
it's the work.
Well, it depends. Like if it's, let's just say it's my movie and I want to get it made, and it doesn't happen, I might not get paid for that script.
Okay.
But if the studio really wants it, it might not get made, but they really want it. They want to make sure I'm not going to go anywhere else with it. They either pay a reasonably high fee that's going to lock me in for at least a year with them, or they're going to buy it outright.
Gotcha. And which is the better option out of those two? Which you think?
Well, don't forget, once they've bought it, that's it. If it doesn't get made, but you can't do anything with it. So if it's a baby of yours that you've spent 10 years writing, and you may get $1 million for it, and it may lead to you getting other $1 million scripts written. Okay. That baby is basically gonna lie dormant forever.
There's also this interesting approach where the studio sometimes hires 4 or 5 screenwriters at the same time, who, unbeknownst to each other, work on the same material. The Wonder Woman movie comes to mind. Warner Brothers had hired Michael Fuchs for Wonder Woman's screenplay. At the same time, they hired 2 or 3 other writers, and Heinberg, who finally got the script made. And they looked at the different approaches and said, "Okay, we like Heinberg's script best. Let's polish it, and that's our movie." And that's quite interesting.
Oh yeah, but at the same time, they've bought all the other scripts. So if there's any elements of the others they like, they can just pull those bits in.
Definitely.
Yeah, and as purchase, they have total creative control.
Yeah, particularly when you're like Warner Brothers and you're dealing with one of or AT&T now, that one of their IPs that they own. Yeah, it's all theirs.
There's also on this Super Bowl Cinema. There's a great video about the Darren Aronofsky Batman movie that never got made. got mad respect for this movie, because when you hear the premise, oh, he's not as Alfred, he gets found by an old car mechanic who teaches him all the trades of the trick. He doesn't know he's rich. He goes up in the garage. He builds his own Batmobile, and he's really an underdog hero. It sounds very ridiculous, but when you go more into detail, that's a great script. And Darren Aronofsky can't use it because it belongs to Warner Brothers. They can do with it what they want. It is great. From what I heard in this video, it sounds like a great script, actually.
Yeah. Or
it sounds like something that fans could connect more with. At least more fans seeing Bruce come from that perspective.
Oh yeah, I mean the thing is about all of these is you look at some of them, and obviously it's all independent taste, whatever your tastes are. There's the films that like that one, you go like, oh, that's cool, that's a cool spin on it, and you think like I'd go and watch that. Then there's films like the Tim Burton Superman movie that literally was about to film, like you know, they had Nicolas Cage as Superman with the long hair Superman.
I laughed at it at first, but until I saw the documentary, I was like, oh shit, you know what? I would have watched this.
Do you know what?
John Schnepp did this. Yeah, there was
John did. I mean, it was amazing movie to watch, the documentary. And I look at it as going like, wow, we dodged that bullet. Because I'd read the script a long time ago, and it was horrible.
I'd watch it for the hell of it.
Horrible.
I just wanted to watch what the hell of it with excitement. Like, oh my god, this would have been so much. We would have been like messing around with this movie for years, making parodies probably.
But we also lost out on Justice League Mortal, which ultimately would have been a better movie than what we got. From just judging from the script and the production art and George Miller as a director, wow, that would have.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's one of those things. I think his Justice League movie would have probably looked amazing. But again, it was that thing of a Justice League movie where it was going to heavily rely on everyone knowing who all these people are. Like when you like leap in, and it was, if you read it, it was the OMAC saga that they were in. It was all of that in there. There was a ton of stuff that they were like, you know, sandwiching in there. And I saw some of the production designs a long time ago, and they did look amazing. And I think I'm trying to remember her name, Gail, the woman who was supposed to play Wonder Woman. I thought she looked amazing. Perfect. She was absolutely perfect. She actually turned up. She had a brief, small role in Mad Max Fury Road.
Okay.
Right, sure.
But I mean, she looked absolutely perfect for Wonder Woman. The right build, the right look, just. Yeah, and stunning.
Yeah, but they rather go for the big names, unfortunately. That's what it is.
Well,
for the bigger names, the rising star. I mean, listen to us, man. We need those unknowns to help build those legends.
But what broke this movie was Australia not willing to give Warner Brothers a tax credit, which endlessly frustrated George Miller, because he said, well, I'm Australian. You're shooting in Australia. Half of my cast is Australian. Why are you not giving us the text? It's not enough. You need to have 2 or 3 former guys from Australia, and we're not giving you 20 million as tax credit. And Warner Brothers said, well, forget it. Simple things can break a movie.
Well, I think there was actually, to be honest, I think there was more going on behind the scenes that
there was a writer's strike coming up. I think
there was the writer's strike coming up, which would have actually been in more of their favor to actually make the film. But I think it was more a case of, you know, even then there was this big plan for a different version of the DCU, or the cinematic universe anyway. And so, you know, one of the things, I mean, I've known people from Warner Brothers for 25 years, and I know that there's constantly it's like Game of Thrones there. There's always someone trying to unseat someone who thinks they've got a better idea about how to do things, and it's crazy. It's like
there's no real structure. It's a zoo.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it's a serious, grim and gritty Animal House.
Yeah, if I recall this correctly, they were either preparing or had already shot the first Nolan Batman movie. And when Christian Bale heard about this competing Justice League movie with Armie Hammer cast as Batman, Armie Hammer, which is an interesting casting, he was really
Yeah.
pissed. He said, "We don't talk about this movie. My Batman movie is the movie about Batman," and he got really angry about this. Understandably so, to a certain degree. And what do we have now? Matt Reeves is shooting the Batman with Robert Pattinson, and we hear talk about Michael Keaton coming back, Ben Affleck coming back. What's going on there? It's quite interesting.
Yeah, the multiverse finally comes to TV
Well,
on a bigger scale.
Well, I think what's interesting is it reflects the impact that AT&T are having on the Warner Brothers structure.
Yes, yes.
Warner Brothers has always had this view of we're going to if there's never been an internal direction for what they're doing. It's always, this is a big name guy. Let's get him and let him give him a boatload of money and let him do whatever he wants. So it's always about giving that person control. And this is what was such a problem with Zack Snyder, is they gave him all the control. And then after one film got a lot of critical backlash, they tried taking that away. And then it's like, well, you've kind of built this car, and now you want to take the wheels off and put kiddie wheels on it. It didn't work.
I think what AT&T brings is this sort of unknown quantity. It reminds me a little bit of you have in Warner Brothers, you have these experienced executive filmmakers, and AT&T is like, it's a little bit like Howard Hughes. When Howard Hughes was in his later years in the 60s, he was holed up in a Las Vegas casino, and on the top floor had all the suites. And at one point, the casino told his people, said, well, we like Howard, but he has been holed up there for a year. We can't check the rooms. We don't know what's going on. We want Howard to leave. Can you tell Howard that? And these people went to Howard and said, Howard, what can we do here? And he said, buy this casino, buy 10 more if I want to move around a little bit, and make it done. And he bought 10 casinos. And AT&T is like this. We have the Snyder Cut. Release it. We don't care. Release it.
Well, I think what it is I think what we're seeing more and more as you get a contraction of power in the industry is whereas before you've got a power structure where people were just willing to just give someone a boatload of money and make something. Now it's and let them have the vision. So it'd be like, remember, you know, even in Gotham, you couldn't have Batman because they were trying to get around the fact they couldn't use Batman. Mm-hmm. You couldn't use Batman, you couldn't use Superman for a while in any of the TV shows because Zack Snyder didn't want anyone else messing with those characters at that time. And Warner Brothers was always about, yes, sir, you know, that's fine. Even in the comics, I know up at DC, if a certain writer that has with a certain power there is doing a certain character, no one else can touch that character. If he says so, he's going like, I want everyone hands off this character while I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think that AT&T is just like, screw you. Mm-hmm. I don't care what agreement you've made. If you want to work with us, this is it. We do what we like. It's our characters. So off we go. And I think you're going to see more of that. Like Netflix is, just as Netflix has changed to somewhere like, we want to own everything. We want to control everything. Warner Brothers is like, it's like the comics. It's like, well, Batman sells, so let's stick him in everything. And they did that in the comics, and they're probably going to do that with the film and TV now. He'll pop up everywhere, and we'll have 10 different Batman actors probably by the end of next year.
We had Gotham, and we only got to see something of a Batman only in the very last episode, and now HBO Max is doing a Gotham version. So let's see if we get a Batman proper there. You know, and is that the one that maybe, you know, is Batfleck coming to HBO?
Well, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he did show up, because if Matt Reeves is doing it and he's directing the current Batman movie, and I don't know if he's going to direct the Ben Affleck film TV series. Ben may want to direct that himself now.
I think so.
don't know.
I think so.
Because
I think
apparently
so.
he had a great script for
Mhm.
the movie, so his version of the movie. So maybe that's something that should get made there. Again, what if it does? That would be great, And again, will it be considered DC's TV multiverse? And will people
Yes.
accept multiple versions of Batman?
Why
Well,
not?
the Ben Affleck film is going to be part of the Snyderverse, or whatever that ends up being called. But that's definitely the Justice League universe.
Snyderverse fits well. I like that. That's it.
Yeah.
Coined the Snyderverse.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
Zack Snyderverse, not Scott.
Yeah, we're going by last names here. Sorry, Scotty.
yeah.
All right, so let's get into this what if for a moment. You know what I mean? So this is your mastermind idea, so I'm going to ask you first. What's your idea? What's your idea, and how would you pitch it? Because I know I have an idea that I've always had in the back of my head of connecting two actually movie verses. But we'll talk about that in a sec. I want to hear what you got.
With Dave and me were talking about our favorite projects, and of course, I think we all would want to see a Fantastic Four movie, a decent a proper Fantastic Four movie, which has not been done so far. Yeah. And I've seen the Roger Corman one, and it's quite interesting. And what I would do, Peyton Reed had the original idea to set up. He was originally slated long before he did Ant-Man. He was originally slated to do a Fantastic Four movie, and his idea was always to set it in the 60s, and that is also my idea. This is a property that belongs into the 60s with all the sensibilities of the 60s, the space race, and you can have these guys. We can have a look that is very Batman, but very much more in the feel of the old 1960s Hitchcock movies. And you can have Reed and Sue pretty glamorous. And then you bring in the moment. Don't do Dr. Doom or anything. Keep that in the 60s, and then take it from there. Make a monster movie, make a movie about the origin story, use this as a metaphor, what's going on in America, the changing landscape, who are the communists, who are the good guys. Make it interesting. Have only the four of them go into space. You can have a flashback to Victor, but basically to introduce him, but not more than that. Victor's not part of the ticket. It's only the four of them. And take the dynamic from there. Make a 60s movie with modern technology. I mean, that would look amazing. The second, it's a part of the trilogy. The second part, I would move to the 70s, the late 70s, Watergate and everything. And why not put Victor in there? Dr. Doom on the height of Watergate, manipulating everything from behind. And then in the third act, reveal him. And in the third act, I would introduce Galactus. And what we have at the end of the Galactus saga is the world is ripped apart, or the time continuum is ripped apart. Fantastic Four saved the day, but they have transported to modern day and are part of the Marvel Universe, the current Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Reed is still the smartest man in the room, 50 years later. That's how I would do it.
I like. It sounds proper. Your trilogy is set. Yeah, Marvel, you hear this, right? Chris already, he's been studying.
Yeah, give me the money.
Well, it's funny. It's like there's sometimes where I'm a purist about things, and like that idea of it being set in the past is definitely very, very appealing.
Absolutely.
But I have to say, like, if you look at what Marvel have done so far and trying to bring the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Universe now, which they're going to do, what works is that it's difficult. Like when they introduced Ant-Man and then Hank Pym Ant-Man, and they started doing little flashbacks to fit him into the past of the Marvel Universe. I think if for them to try fitting the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Universe is yet another fix that it just like they're going to have to start fixing things and having flashbacks to things that we haven't been revealed so far.
But they're not adverse to it as we saw in the Captain Marvel movie.
No, they're not. But I think again, it's like there's done so much of that so far I think they've kind of got to stop. And I think that one of the things, like, and I think by doing everything you've just said, see, I would like to see personally, we talked about this morning, I would like to see Doctor Doom introduced in, say, like, have him appear in the next Doctor Strange movie. As a character who even comes to him looking for help to find his wife who got
his mother, I think,
taken. Yeah, his mother. His mother has been taken by Mephisto. You know, which again sets up the big villain, which could set up a big villain for the horror, sort of the Ghost Rider and all of those, and even potentially Silver Surfer eventually. So you introduce Doctor Doom in Doctor Strange. And the idea that he's upset, he gets let down by Doctor Strange. And so he then goes in search of a scientist. And of course, Tony Stark's dead now. So he goes to the next best, Richards. And Richards at this point isn't Mr. Fantastic. But again, he agrees to help him. That doesn't work out.
Something, the stream is breaking off. Well, you can hear me. So what I would suggest, what we talked about this morning, is to have a complete arc for Victor. Why have him start off as a douchebag? Have him start off as a good guy, which he basically originally was. He had a hubris, but he's not a bad guy. He can start off as a good guy, and he loses more and more of his humanity on his quest to find his mother and during the things he encounters.
Yeah, I think he's, he is the guy who, I mean, Doctor Strange probably wouldn't help him unless he thought he was sympathetic.
Yeah, so that's absolutely what I would think.
Yeah, so he starts off as sympathetic, but he's, you can tell straight away. You know how Tony Stark's character, at the beginning, very brilliant, bit of a douchebag. And if you look at his character arc, the whole run of Iron Man and the Avengers, how he goes, basically, he becomes, he's up there. He has as noble a heart as Captain America has, but it's very much a transition for him. And you could actually have that same character arc with Doctor Doom, except he goes the other way. He doubles down. He doubles down on. Yeah, he doubles down on that. He becomes almost like anti-Tony Stark. And of course, he's an Iron Man because he's in the armor.
Yeah, you can play around with the fact that he's sort of the heir to the throne of Latveria. Maybe there's some other guys who took over in his absence. He has this additional weight of the people who want him back as a noble ruler because his father was a noble ruler, and in the end, they got what they bargained for. But now he's the despot. That would be very, very interesting.
Yeah. But nice. I think that's definitely. And again, we also talked. It was like I agree with everybody that the last Fantastic Four movie wasn't that great. But what I did like about it was, Josh Trank decided to take okay, well, if you go back to the beginning of the 60s, what was everyone talking about? It was the space race. It was like race to the moon. So if you got to the present day, and we know that the chances of space travel beyond our solar system aren't in any of our lifetimes. So what about the idea of, we've all been talking, like even Stephen Hawking was talking about the multiverse. So what about the idea of punching through dimensions into another universe and having them make that trip? I thought that was great. I thought that was a very cool twist. They're on the forefront of something new. That's, why have them retread something? So yes, I thought that was great. Unfortunately, the rest of it wasn't that great.
Nope. Yeah, but I think that the idea also to have it based on the idea of body horror was not a bad idea for Trank to explore. Because the origin of the Fantastic Four is a monster book, and he tried to incorporate that in a David Cronenbergian way, and why not? That's the core essence of the book, because they never asked for these superpowers. And if you look at Ben's transformation or Johnny and even Sue, I mean, now she is literally the Invisible Woman. And that's quite an interesting idea to work with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I'm still thinking about Chris, though, bringing it back to the 60s with the Mole Man and all that. I'm loving it. That I really love. If we could really do that. That would be so cool.
Sure.
I would love to see. Cool. I would love to see Mole Man and all those monsters under the earth being.
See, and that's a role Tom Cruise could play because he's short enough. Because I cannot see him in a miniature Iron Man suit.
Yeah, but you can turn. You can even twist that around, and he's actually an attractive guy. But he never saw himself as beautiful. You can work with it. There's a lot of things you can do.
Well, he was almost blinded, wasn't he? He was almost blinded by living under. Because remember, all those crystals they saw underground just blinded him.
There you go. You see, man, you could do it with him. I think it fits better for him. It fits much better.
It works with Tom Cruise playing. Yeah, it works with Tom Cruise playing him or Danny DeVito.
Dude, I still like Danny as the Penguin for that old school Batman. I think Danny killed it. That was fun.
Oh, he did. That was great. Yeah.
That was a very dark movie. Very interestingly, very dark movie, which also happened because Tim Burton didn't want to come back, and Warner Brothers said, "Okay, make your movie the way you want." That's the way he did it, and after that, they course-corrected too much in the other direction.
Yeah, definitely. You guys want to hear my idea?
Tell us.
See, I love the Terminator franchise, right? And I love the Matrix franchise, right? So I was like, how can you tell me that the Matrix is not the future of the Terminator? You know what I mean? How can you not tell me that? You know, you have to connect this. You know what I mean? Terminators win. You know what I mean? But you show us that journey. You know, and you know, even before Neo's, because from what we understand, that Neo wasn't even the first Neo anyway. It wasn't the first attempt. So we could start learning about that first attempt. What in the human spirit, you know, keeps us fighting, you know, as we're doing now. I mean, it's great for real. It's what we're doing now, you know. We can never be beat. We cannot be held back. We cannot be stopped, you know. We will continue fighting until we're free type situation, you know. That's what I want the story kind of to fall into. But come on, man. Terminator, that's it. Show that story, our end and our new beginnings for our new fight and our new journey. Those goddamn, they fit so uniquely, and they felt excited. I mean, have you always thought the same? How well they fit together?
See, what I always felt it would be almost imagine a prequel to the Matrix where at first you had you've got the big war between mankind and the Terminators. Terminators take over. Yep. So Terminators take over. We're almost wiped out. Then one faction of Terminators, as you know, they're going to do the same thing that we did to create them, which is they're going to try and improve upon themselves. And whatever they create to improve upon themselves comes up with this idea of like, no, let's not kill all the humans off because we've had all this war. Let's start rebuilding this planet for ourselves, and let's use humans as human batteries. And what if you then had, like, as they take charge, as they start to build these human batteries, you then have a war between the entities of the Matrix and the Terminators, because the Terminators realize, like, oh shit, we're obsolescent now, and it literally ends with kind of it's the Matrix. By the time of the Matrix and Neo, you know, maybe there is even somewhere in that world there's a little band of rebel Terminators trying to
purposely awake those folks that to wake up and challenge the Matrix from within.
They want to use humans now. They want to team up with humans to get to destroy the Matrix.
But can you trust them towards the end? I love it.
But it'd be fun. It'd be fun telling that story.
It actually connects to a property we talked about like 20 minutes ago, Dune. Because in Dune, they're under computers. Why are they under computers? Because ages ago, there was a war between mankind and the machines. And mankind obviously won, but they abolished all kinds of computers. Everything is organic-based now. Which is a very interesting idea. How do you get?
It would be really cool. You know, that's the afterworld of the Matrix once we're free. Centuries later.
Or the off-world colonies.
Oh man, guys, are you hearing this? Hollywood, get it done, or even comic books. Let's get it done.
It's funny now. It's like wasn't the recent Terminator movies made by Warner Brothers?
Were they?
No,
Wasn't Dark Fate made by Warner Brothers?
No, I think I think the rights holder at the moment is David Cameron again, but he's in league with the.
So it's 20th Century Skydance Media.
Skydance is in league with James Cameron, but James Cameron got the rights back, so he could technically go to Warner Brothers, from what I understand.
Because that's where the Matrix is. So.
Okay, here other production companies involve Paramount, Skydance, 20th Century, Tencent, TSG, Lightstorm, distributed both by Paramount and 20th Century.
But as far as I know, Cameron got the rights back, for what reason ever. But the interesting thing is also if you get a guy like Cameron on such a project, that would be very interesting.
Well, Cameron on this project, I mean, who would be an ideal director for a massive project like this, linking those universes?
Well, you'd have to get. Imagine putting James Cameron and the Wachowski sisters in the same room.
Yeah,
oh my god! Oh my god!
Very cool.
I mean, you have to
be a supernova.
It makes sense to have them both involved. Like, they're more involved. Yeah, I mean, it could you could get something amazing, or it'd be like.
Yeah, it's such a waste that Cameron decides to do 10 Avatar movies. I mean, that's very. I mean, you can never count him out. I'm sure he has some new technology he's going to bring to release on mankind, but I'm not up for 10 Avatar movies.
You know what it is? Because avatars are really the aliens. It hasn't been digital. Those are really aliens, guys. Those are the aliens that they found the off-world vehicle from. So Cameron hired them to film the movie Avatar.
Right.
You're just looking at me like, are you serious? It's 2020. You'd believe anything.
But
right?
you see this. But you see now though, like how long before we're actually going to see like aliens and Predator turn up in like the Avengers movies?
Well, it's going to happen. I mean, they purchased the product. We already saw a tease where Predator is holding Iron Man's suit. And the idea of I think you said last that, now we have the proper Brood in the Marvel universe, if you will, because the Brood was, as you stated, basically a rip of Alien. But how does Predator fit into the midst of all this now? If there's a previous Predator that's been around, I mean, damn, I don't know. I don't know how Predator fits in. I see Alien fit in better. But Predator, I don't see any fun in it. You know what I mean? Unless we put him with a death's head type of situation and stuff like that. I don't know.
No, well, you're gonna have to have Predator versus Punisher.
I was about to say that exactly. That would be interesting.
My favorite, is that fan film. I wish we could have elaborated on the Batman versus Predator. That was one of the dopest fan films I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Batman. I mean, Predator versus Punisher. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
See. I mean, look. There's not been much in the way of Predator movies, and they've not been around, and their past hasn't been explored like the Alien movies have.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So and of course, Predators. If you put them into the Marvel universe, that would predate any of their appearances in the Aliens movies. Technically.
And would you make them older than the Krees and Skrulls as an alien race? Would you say they're older than them?
I wouldn't. See, it depends on. See, you can go a couple of different ways on it. Like, we know so little about the Predators. Are they anything more than just an honor guard for another race? So what if take the Shi'ar Empire from the X-Men?
Okay.
What if there's an elite guard that are the Predators and the
Black Ops, if you will?
Yeah, and so they're part of something larger, and they literally have their own community. They have let's go out and you're raised almost like the Spartans were in a city
like
or
Mandalorians.
Yeah, and you're going to work for the Shi'ar Empire, but you've got your own honor and stuff like that. And
that
then,
I would love to see. Predators and Star Wars. That would be dope.
Yeah. The Mandalorian versus Predator.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of the Predators as a sort of Spartans of the Shire Empire. That would be interesting to explore. Give them a backstory.
But why not hear about that? How can we go back in that history and say how involved were the Predators in the Marvel universe as a whole?
Oh, well, hold on, Marvel.
We're introducing them as a new species.
Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you're interested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the Marvel Universe, you can do anything they want, and they don't care. They're just going to follow on from what their bosses tell them to do. But in the Cinematic Universe, they're about to reintroduce the Marvel Universe, or sorry, the X-Men universe into the current Marvel Universe. So we, I mean, I think we're all presuming that they're hitting reboot and starting from scratch again, but who knows?
Okay.
But if they do, then everything's a blank slate. They can introduce the Shi'ar Empire. Again, introduce.
You're right though, because Gunn is back, correct, to do the Guardian stuff, because he had this great idea of this cosmic world. So I think introducing the Predators maybe within that Guardians movie would be pretty cool.
It would be. I mean, do you know? It would be great if they just introduced like just in one sequence where one of the villains sets a bunch of aliens on them, or a couple of predators on them, just so we see them in action, just so we can get a taste of what's to come. Something like that would be fun.
Yeah, it would.
Definitely,
I want to see that.
Definitely, that would be something very new. I mean, of course, some crossover comics, from what I understand, but in a cinematic universe to merge two franchises, that has never been done, as far as I know.
Oh man, you guys are killing me. Could you imagine also a Planet of the Apes versus Terminators type situation?
Ooh.
That a robot is what lands on Planet of the Apes.
Didn't they do? I know there was a Tarzan Planet of the Apes, and there was a
Tarzan Planet for sure.
There was a King Kong Planet of the Apes as well.
Yep. That was boom, and they even did the original script of the Planet of the Apes. Boom, released in a comic book format. That I've still got to read. That's the only thing I haven't read yet, because I'm a big fan of that franchise too. I grew up on that stuff.
Yeah, as much as I love the recent Planet of the Apes movies, I thought they're absolutely brilliant. I'm still holding out for like. So is someone going to computer generate Charlton Heston for one of the future movies?
Wouldn't that be fire?
Or are they going to remake that movie to fit in with what's going on in the current movies? Because I miss. Yeah, I love that first movie so much.
Hey, we got Venezuela in the house. A shout out to Dave DSG. Thanks for tuning in.
Rod Serling wrote that one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Rod Serling was genius.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
bro.
Great movie.
So, what do you think? Is there anything you think could blend in with a Planet of the Apes?
Commandy.
Oh, true.
Sure.
Man, that's a nice one, bro.
Definitely.
But see, I pitched years ago. I pitched a miniseries. Well, it wasn't a miniseries. It was a miniseries, but I was hoping it'd be more at DC for a Commandy series where you find out the origin of how the world turned the way it did, but also created sort of a bigger, expansive world for Commandy, but keeping everything Jack did faithfully. Like, because I love Kirby's stuff, so I wasn't gonna undo anything, but I came up with
blasphemy. Thank you.
No.
So, but I came up with this really cool idea, and what it did, it was basically what I was doing was, it was a reincarnation. Basically, it was the return of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and Commandy is King Arthur.
Okay.
So the idea was, I really loved in the 60s, the Marvel comics where it's like tales of suspense, and Tales to Astonish, where you had Giant Man and Hulk sharing the same comic. So what this was a similar title like that, where I had Captain Marvel or Shazam in one half and Kamandi in the other. And the concept was that you think it's two completely different strips until about issue 4 or 5, when you actually realize it's one story, and you realize they're one Captain Marvel, or Shazam. I'm going to call him Captain Marvel. I hate calling him Shazam. Captain Marvel appears in. You find out the origin of Kamandi's world, because one of the things, like, if you look at everything in the Kamandi universe, it in the time frame that sometimes later got laid out, it doesn't fit. Like, how would rats and tigers and all of those develop to the point where they can walk and talk and be so large
so quickly,
so fast, even no matter what sort of radius? It wouldn't have to be normal radius, it would have to be magic. So what I had was the origins of the universe. It was a fight in Europe between the demon and Merlin versus Morgana Le Fay. And Morgana Le Fay wins. And what happens is she creates the equivalent of a magical explosion. Like, she basically sets off a magic nuclear weapon.
A magic Big Bang.
That basically rips across the world, but its epicenter is in Europe. So Europe is now just like Lord of the Rings. It transforms most of the population into orcs, demons, trolls. There's still a lot of humans left, but it doesn't get everybody, but the majority have become misshapen. But as it spreads out around the world, the effect slightly changes. But so by the time it hits America, what's happening is all these animals start growing. They become super intelligent. And so they take over society, and the humans tend to dumb down. So that's why that explains that whole world. And then the difference here is that I was going to use a concept of Captain America, Captain Marvel, where when Billy Batson says Shazam, he becomes Captain Marvel, but he doesn't become Captain Marvel in his own world. He transforms to another Earth in a different universe, and that universe is Kamandi's. So every time Billy Batson says Shazam, he becomes Captain Marvel in Kamandi's universe, and because he's magic power, and he's given, and the wizard in this Captain Marvel is actually Merlin. Merlin travels to that universe for help. He goes, I'm looking for someone, and he gives his power to Billy Batson so that he can come back to his world to help the demon Etrigan fight Morgana Le Fay. And they recruit OMAC. You've got knights, the Atomic. Remember the Atomic Knights?
The Atomic Knights, yeah.
Yeah, bring the Atomic
those giant Dalmatians
in. Yeah, loads of that. So it would just be a super fun series.
Wow, man, you touched my heart there, man.
Sounds like
I dug all those series. I dug all those series, man.
And it would just be like it would be a fantasy book series, and So yeah, that was the one I'd still like to do that, but it was moving forward, and then I was told I couldn't do anything with Captain Marvel because somebody else was doing him, and it was just one of those things. Maybe in about a year, when he's finished with that character and he's off to something else.
Yeah.
Here's also great. Here's also a property DC could do. Camelot 3000. It's a complete story. You can tell it as a movie,
or a series of movies. Or HBO Max, because
make it your Game of Thrones. It's basically King Arthur crossed with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, that shit would kick ass on HBO Max, dude. Oh my god.
Well, they do it ultra violent.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, like, what we're facing now is, like, if you look at all the films that have been delayed till next year now, like all the films that kept getting pushed back, now they're next year. And now what they're doing is they're really evaluating, like, how do we release this now? Like, a lot of the studios are talking that there isn't going to be movie theaters for it to be shown in. Like, think about it. It's like that. There's
is AMC going to survive the movie theater chain? Going to survive another 3 or 4 months? I doubt it.
Exactly. Once the government stops, like, they're cherry picking which companies to help out financially. So as we know, they're not really helping out the comics industry very much. And so why should they help out movie chains unless they've donated to the president? So,
that's some bullshit. See, this is why I hate the game of effing politics, man. Oh, well, we don't want to help you unless you donate. Donate for what, yo? Do a good goddamn job, and maybe I'll fucking vote for you because I want to.
Yeah. Well, let's not get into politics.
I don't know, but you just touch me. It's like, it's so stupid how that affects and ruins our lives. That stuff. No movies, no comics.
No, you just don't want to get me started. That's all. As anyone who is kindly still following me on Twitter knows that I'm not all about comics, but I think that everyone's reevaluating. Like, it really is going to be a Netflix HBO world, and I think maybe
VOD is doing Trolls proved it. And that was the one that laid the groundwork where one franchise told that particular studio, middle finger salute, we're never going to show your movies here again because I feel you violated us. We can't.
I think they're going to release the Black Widow movie on VOD because Disney is hemorrhaging money and they have a shareholder meeting coming up early in August, and they need to show profit. They need to show money coming in.
Yeah.
They should. So, it makes money. I mean, that Trolls was no joke. It made an abundance of money on VOD, and why not release the millions that way? It's much cheaper on the family too.
Yeah,
great.
I think there's going to be a lot of films that people are looking at that where, like the Justice League movie. It's going to be broken into 4 parts and shown over, 4 episodes. So that has to be something that everyone's going like, okay. Did we do any? Was there any extra footage that we've got of Black Widow that we can put into it and then break it in 2 and show it as show it over 2 weeks?
Definitely.
And I think everyone's looking at every movie and like, what did we got on the cutting floor? What else did you shoot? And there is going to be directors like Zack Snyder who have always shot way more than he's used.
Yeah, you think about Batman v Superman. The theatrical cut was 2.5 hours. I got the extra bonus cut at 3 hours, but I heard rumors that there's another half hour he could have put back into the movie. So you have
4-hour movie.
Watchmen. The Watchmen cut is 4 hours long.
4 hours. I haven't watched that Watchmen cut yet.
Oh yeah.
4 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, look at all the Lord of the Rings movies. The Hobbit. The Hobbit director's cuts.
12 hours, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I thought
that's a TV series right there. Okay, it doesn't have the beats of a TV series. It's a movie, or it's movies. But you can still release it as 12 installments. Why not?
But the other aspect is this: if you're putting these movies to one side and going like, we'll release these later. Well, everyone's used to going back and doing reshoots on movies. Like, oh, okay, well, we've got to go back and the ending's got to be tweaked and this scene has to be tweaked. Well, it's like, well, okay, that 20 minutes of the film we cut out the script phase. Let's actually go and shoot that now, and we'll put that in, and we'll make it a longer. We'll break it into 2 or even 3, and break it into 3 episodes or 4 episodes for,
Definitely. Why not? Definitely. Yeah. And this way, if you spread it out and you release it week after week, you get new subscribers, and this way you eventually end up with a decent chunk of money, I think.
Yeah.
A shout out to Ultra Maximus watching us on YouTube. Go ahead.
Good man.
Big shout out. Yeah. Okay. What is another property, Dave? What kind of property would you pitch? Other than your script for Kamandi? Do you have another one? Another dream project?
Yeah, let's pick his brain over here. This guy has a plethora of ideas. That smile. He goes like, "Damn, I have a Bible. Hold on, it's gonna be like."
Yeah, it's like, hold on, let me just go through my folder over here. No, it's funny. It's like the project I thought would never happen, and I thought if it did, it would be animated. Was Kirby's New Gods, and and it's like Ava as a director. It's like she's amazing. Her documentaries are fantastic. But I still thought it was an odd choice. I was like, oh, wonder what. I was like, I follow her on Twitter, so I'm wondering, like, okay, what drew you to a Jack Kirby project like that, cosmic project? And I mean, Tom King's coming on to write the script for it, or co-writing the script with her, and I gotta be honest, I'm not feeling it. I'd prefer someone who actually liked Kirby's stuff to do it. But I think that like that's a project where you could do like Game of Thrones. Like there's, like I've never thought that anyone at DC ever had a good handle on Darkseid. He's such a it's like if I could have an actor play him at any period in time, I would go back, and I would probably go back to sort of the late 30s or something, and pull Orson Welles out to play him.
Interesting idea. Yeah, sure.
Because you don't want someone. He's not physical. You see him like in the comics, and he's in these punch-ups with Superman. That's not Darkseid. Darkseid's the ultimate manipulator, planner. Yes. He doesn't need, like, he's too high.
He's a diesel Loki.
Yeah, he's way up. I mean, Loki just is nothing. Like,
That's what I'm saying. He's a diesel Loki, much bigger, much more scheming.
But he's intelligent, and he was. It's funny. Like, even though Thanos was a ripoff of Darkseid, if you look at the movies. I mean, I loved what they did with Thanos in the movies. They actually made him genuinely believe in what he's doing, and they gave him a bona fide reason for doing it. Whether you agree with it or not, you can understand where his reasoning came from. And that is the sort of direction. It's not the right take, but that's the direction you want to go with Darkseid. It's someone he's not evil, at least. Not to himself, he's not.
He's the hero in his own story.
Exactly.
Of course, one villain thinks they're evil. Very few actually know they're assholes,
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, it's like they're usually played as villains. Whereas Darkseid doesn't need, he's just someone who's so dedicated to something, and he believes it's the right way to do it. I mean, there's no part of it that's like Thanos, where he's trying to do something for the greater good of the universe. It's all for himself. But I think that that has so much potential, and it's all there. If you read the New Gods and Mr. Miracle, just the way Orion's raised, the way Scott Free is raised, Scott Free's relationship with Big Barda. All of that, the relationship between Orion and his father, High Father, and the loss of his wife, the wars, and striving to make peace. It's all there. You don't need any of the stuff that was created afterwards. It's
absolutely, and obviously there. A multitude of spin-offs too. With the other Bush, with the Forever People, introduced them there. I mean, I'm pretty sure there'll be, a popular crew. It'll be young kids, Forever People. It'll be dope.
Oh yeah, I mean, doing Forever People as basically a TV show or something episodic at the same time, where you've got a group of young god pacifists who just don't want to be involved in the war, and they come to Earth almost to hide. They're basically they're draft dodgers. They're it's them going to Canada rather than fighting in the Vietnam War.
And I mean, just that concept alone, that there's still gods that, you know, I don't want to deal with this crap. And let me just hang out.
Yeah, and do you know what it's like? And the other thing is going back to everything that Jack Kirby did with even like Jimmy Olsen. I mean,
oh yeah, man,
you could actually do a Jimmy Olsen movie where he's not a dick. He's not just some kid flunky.
Also, a great way to introduce the new god, which was through Superman's pal anyway. So with a Jimmy Olsen movie, something that no one would expect.
Yeah. So do that as a TV series. Again, do that as an episodic series. Sets, but don't do it like Cartoon Network. Do it a bit, you know, more Netflixy. Something with a bit more, a little bit more grit to it, but still some comedy to it.
Like that Star Wars Clone Wars cartoon franchise, you know, I really digging that. I was like, wow, a lot of action, great storyline, and each season, you know, is his own standalone story, a continuing theme, but with a standalone story. That was a great franchise series.
But you could, as you said, it's like you can introduce the, you know, it's Darkseid first noticing Earth exists. He's slowly, like, he's got a few lieutenants here who are sort of basically scouting around. You've got the evil factory, he's basically, which is his base, and that could be fun. That could be a really fun, whether it's done animated, I think live action, so that it would actually fit within the larger universe, so it fitted more easily.
Yeah, and that would be cool.
And have Superman in it on a semi-regular basis, but because there were some scenes, even though Superman wasn't in it that much, Kirby really, like, he gave us a Superman that knew the weight of responsibility on his shoulders and how to, it was like he knew that he was different from people. He knew he could do things others couldn't. And he knew that the effect he had on people. And so whenever I hear people going like, oh, Superman's boring, I don't know what to do with him. It's just like, no, just go back and read those and just go from there.
We need those stories now too. And a shout out to the Variant Podcast. They say, love the show, you guys. So we love you back too.
Oh, cheers. Oh,
cool. Very cool. Thank you.
I'm feeling the love. Yeah.
So how about that though?
Very cool concept. I would do it as a live action series.
Yeah, what about though? That Kirby take on Superman. Screw what CW is trying to do.
Oh yeah, but but what you do is, it's like they're DCU are struggling for this universe, and it's like, well, you can create a side one, like create a New Gods universe that's connected to the other one, but is contained. Like, so that Superman guest stars in Jimmy Olsen. Maybe he makes a brief appearance in, he'll just as he did in Forever People, just as he did in New Gods.
We saw the potential for that in that Crisis series where they did engage the DCU universe on from streaming and the movies and connected it to the TV verse. So I mean, it's true if they allow themselves, at AT&T as a whole, like you say, if they really don't give a crap and say, why not let him show up here?
Yeah, you also have the Guardians of the Galaxy in the Marvel Universe. They exist in their own world. They crossed over now for the Infinity Saga, but they're going back to their own world now.
Yeah. And the other thing that the New Gods gave the DC Universe was somewhere that Superman could potentially feel at home. Like, there was an issue of Jimmy Olsen where Superman gets to Supertown, like he goes to New Genesis, and straight away he realizes, like, he tries being Superman and he's not needed as Superman. It's just like, chill out, man, just what's up? And he feels out of place because everyone's just like him. But I think that there's a lot of potential for that.
That's a great mind F right there. In one planet you're godlike, and you go to another, you're just an ordinary person.
But the idea of once he'd get used to it, I'd imagine him wanting to go back.
Of course.
And eventually finding that somewhere is where he could relax. Like, I put his Fortress of Solitude on New Genesis.
A shout out to the Jack Kirby Museum, and they said it all started in Forever People #1.
It did indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So shout out. Thank you for watching Jack Kirby Museum. Yeah, you know, as you see, Dave, we all love Kirby. It's just some great stuff. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a great material. And you're so right. Why are they not digging into that? Even the Demon, you know what I mean? Bringing some horror elements in from the DC. You took away Swamp Thing, you know, bringing some Demon. I would love to see this as a show as well. You know, especially how you said with that Camelot idea. You know, bring them back. This would be fantastic on the TV. I mean, the cartoon versions have been fun thus far.
Here's a little preview to the column that you're going to read very soon, Comic Crusaders.
Confidential scoop.
Everybody knows the origin of Green Arrow, don't they? That is not the original origin. Kirby created that origin. The origin from the 1940s starts with Roy on the island. He loses his father.
Harper?
Yes, he loses his father, and he's raised by a Native American who is also on the plane. His father's plane crashes. He's a little boy still. He's maybe 8 years old. He is on the island. It's not an island, basically. It's a mesa. It's not even an island, but it's very remote. And then the story cuts to Oliver, who's not rich. He's a curator of a museum for Native American art. And some crooks going to steal the exhibition, or they want some money. Everything burns. He goes to his gentleman club, and the guy says, well, have you heard of the Lost Mesa? There's supposedly some Native American treasures. And Oliver goes there too. The action cuts back to the Lost Mesa. A plane arrives, and you think, oh, this is Oliver. No, it's some guys overheard Oliver in this gentleman's club talking about gold, which they thought was real gold. They land, and Roy is maybe 10, 12. He got older, and he immediately attacks those guys. Roy is very fierce, but eventually they retreat because his mentor says, well, basically, let's not fight with those guys. They have guns, we have arrows. Let's go away. And then he meets Oliver, and he thinks he's one of the bad guys. They fight. Eventually, they try to escape from the bad guys again. The Native American mentor is killed. There's Oliver and Roy. Roy gives Oliver the bow and arrow of his Native American mentor. So you have two bowmen now. They defeat the bad guys. They find the gold. They are rich. They live together. That's the original origin.
So Roy trains.
Speedy, yeah, basically, Speedy is in the first issue. He's right there.
Wow.
It's not like Robin. They're on an equal footing.
Not
Kirby,
more than equal footing, because Roy is training Oliver.
Yeah,
exactly.
So,
and it's basically it's Kirby who changed this completely. And there's an interesting retcon which Danny O'Neill did in the 70s with Mike Grell, which is also interesting, all in my new column. It's basically there are for 10 years no female character in Green Arrow stories.
10 years. That's kind of interesting.
Why? Even Kirby didn't touch on that. And it's
you got my interest.
It's a minefield, isn't it?
It's not what you think it is. Even though there is an interesting story when the original origin gets retold. A couple of issues after the first issue, Roy and Oliver are in the bathroom. They're showering, and they got away with that in the 40s. But that is not the reason why there are no women in the book. O'Neill goes back in the 70s with Mike Grell, and there's a scene before Oliver gets kicked off the boat, and he's smoozing and cruising with the ladies. There's this one woman who says, well, basically, you are a sociopath. You are a very strange guy, Oliver. And this is when we learn that he's already a hard ass before he's on the island. The island gives him license to become this dark hunter. O'Neill basically retcons the idea to say, well, basically, he is a very strange guy. And it's only until he meets Black Canary that he connects with somebody who's as damaged as he is.
There's a question for you, Chris.
Oh, okay.
Chris, there's a question for you from the Jack Kirby Museum. Was Weisinger credited as the writer on that original origin?
Of Green Arrow, yes.
Okay.
He did it with George Pep. But hang on, no. If you mean the origin, no, that was not Weisinger. Weisinger was no longer writing the book at that time. Weisinger wrote the first issue, and George Pep did the art. They created Speedy and Oliver, but that was not the origin story. That came in More Fun Comics 79, if I recall correctly, or 73. That's the first issue. And in 89, a guy named, I think, Jack or Sam, I really need to look up the name. He has a very strange name. It's in my script. He created the origin story.
Okay.
It was not Weisinger who created the origin story.
Okay. There you go, Jack Kirby Museum. Hope that satisfies the question.
Look it up on the Great Comic Book Database, and that's the writer who's credited there. And it's not Mort, because Mort was already moved. The reason why it's also amazing when you look back, Oliver was the only original Golden Age hero, other than Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, who stayed in print throughout the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Interesting.
Because Mort Weisinger had created him. And he put him in Superboy and Action Comics as a backup. Yeah. So he wouldn't die. He would stay on. I do like those. I do like those little Jack Kirby stories. Some of them were crazy. But yeah. And going back to Kirby, what Kirby did in when he retold the origin, he completely invented the origin story we know today. It's only Oliver. Oliver gets stranded. He goes to the island, which is Star Island. That's the first time we have the island, and it's a survival story. It's basically Kamandi on an island. Oliver has to learn all these skills, and he has to survive on the island. And it's a story he tells to Roy. It's completely different. I have to actually say, it's like that's probably one of the few times where I would actually say I hate to say this. I actually prefer the one. I prefer the idea of Roy training Oliver. Yeah, it sounds cool. Very different. It does. Very interesting. Very interesting. And it's a much stronger dynamic. It creates a much stronger dynamic between the two, rather than just. And you see, it's a kid training. They're completely on let's say equal footing, and this is also exploring right when we start with the first Oliver Green Arrow story in More Fun Comics 73. Roy is on the cover. Roy is already part of the team. It's not like 1 year later, Robin comes onto the team and Batman mellows a little bit. No, it's completely already their dynamic. And what I really like about the story is when Oliver comes to Lost Mesa, they've really aged Roy up. You see it in the first panel. He's best of all, he's maybe a child of 7, 8 years old. When Oliver shows up, there's a story behind it. He got older. He's now maybe 12, 13, 14. And but how old was Oliver at the time? All this time on the island. What's that? Did they dictate how old Oliver is? Is he much older than Roy? Probably guess he's in his late 20s, and you have this kid who's 15, 16 at best. So there's a sort of difference between those two. Okay. But it's also interesting. It's interesting how he comes to his fortune. It's by finding this gold there, this Native American gold. Yeah. And what is also very interesting is this is the story where Oliver kills for the first time. Oh, okay. Because basically they kill the Native American friend of Roy, and Roy says, well, basically, my second father is gone, and Roy says, well, basically, Oliver says, well, we must soldier on, and he invents this arrow with a line, and they try to swing out of the way, and a big idol topples and kills all the bad guys. And Oliver says, well, basically, that's too bad. Shit happens. And he's basically moved on from there. And this is basically what you see in Green Arrow, because Green Arrow is the one. Green Arrow is Batman who kills. And you see this going through. And this is going back to the original, or the retelling of O'Neill and Grell, because once Grell comes in the book, it's much harder. It's much harder etched. And that's already started in 74, when he comes in the book. It's completely different, because once Grell and O'Neill work together, everything becomes much harder. And what I didn't know, and I found out, is in 74, Grell comes on the book Green Arrow, which is a backup in Action Comics. It's basically Green Arrow and Black Canary, because Green Lantern got cancelled. Green Arrow got continued in the Flash as a backup, and Action Comics had Green Arrow guest starring more or less Black Canary. Written by Buse Al Mega, drawn by Dick Giordano and the other guys, Dick Dillon. Grell comes on the book, That's 2 years after he joined DC Comics. He says after the first story, can I write the book? And he co-writes with Elliott as Megan. The first story he does is a story that is very similar to the Longbow Hunters. And from there on, he is the guy who is responsible for Green Arrow. And what does he do at the end of 75, a year later? He launches Warlord, which is basically Green Arrow set in the past.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that becomes the biggest DC book at that time.
And he looks exactly like, yeah.
It's that Neil Adams redesign. Yes, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And there goes another franchise we didn't even talk about. That's another franchise, could be a movie. What, you know, a Warlord, dude.
Yeah, but what's so amazing is what everybody's talking about Byrne and Frank Miller, rightfully so. But in the mid 70s, Grell did Warlord. He wrote, he penciled and inked the book, and he penciled and inked Green Arrow, Green Lantern, because the book got restarted with Daniel Neal writing in 76. So he did 2 full books at the same time. There's one writing one of the books. Isn't that amazing?
Wow, yeah, that's work. I mean, speaking with so many writers and artists lately, and understanding the craft a little bit more, like, wow, yeah, that dude is insane.
I wonder if the Warlord at the time was monthly or bi-monthly.
It started, I think, it started in this.
It started as first issue special,
number 8,
as a one shot, and then went from there to get his own series after a bit.
It took them 2 months before a new series was greenlit. There's only 2 months between the tryout and the kick of the series. Well, I have to look up if it was originally bi-monthly, but I think it was I think it was monthly. I'm not sure. Might be that the Green Lantern book was bi-monthly because they had just restarted it. Yeah. But if you look at the artwork in these early Green Lantern issues, it's Grell on art and Warlock. It's amazingly detailed. It's incredible. And what is also so interesting is there's all these nice stories that cover.
Here it goes. The facts on the Warlord is after that he came out in Warlord #1, 76. And then when #1 came out, there was an 8-month hiatus after issue #2, picking up again with #3. And then from there it went monthly and lasted up to 133 issues.
He needed a little bit lead time then, obviously, because he was working on, and that's the amazing thing, he was still doing the last issues on the Legion of the Superheroes at that time.
Yep.
He was finishing that up.
Yep. On this particular run, he drew the comic for 6 years, and then he handed over the art chores after issue 59, but kept writing until issue 71.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that is basically when he also began to working on the Longbow Hunters, which completely I wouldn't say we did Green Arrow, because it's basically a continuation from where he took the character. And also the character of Black Canary. It's quite an interesting story. But what I find so amazing is Elliott as Megan took on, we all know Elliott Megan as Superman writer. He took on Green Arrow as a backup story. His first story came in Green Lantern '87, and how that story came about is so interesting because when he was a teenager, he had already sold some short stories to boys' magazines. And he's basically very young. He's born 1950, so he's the perfect baby boomer. And when he went to university, he handed in a short story he had written as one of his term papers. And the instructor came back and said, well, basically, it's kind of okay, but it's a B-. And Elliott Megan said, well, basically, I will show the world, like it's Spider-Man, Peter Parker, I will show the world. He turned this into a comic book story featuring Green Lantern, shipped it off to DC. They bounced it around the office until Neil Adams saw that and said, well, basically, that's a cool story. I will draw it. Julius Schwartz was the editor. He looked at that story and said, that's the best story I've written since Young Ray Bradbury. Hire that guy immediately. He got hired out of university by Julius Schwartz. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Too funny. Wow. Crazy stuff.
Yeah. It's funny how you look back and there's, Elliott Megan's always been a great example of I always enjoyed his run on Superman.
Very good writer.
Yeah, and and it's just like, again, like these guys who just you don't hear from, and and it's it's like with Marv Wolfman. It's not like these guys couldn't still write.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
They kind of just got kicked to the curb.
Like Gardner Fox is a very good example.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
He was at the DC for the longest time, and then they made room for younger guys like Denny O'Neil.
Yeah, I mean, it was always gutting. Like I can remember that when John Byrne took over Superman, I can remember being sort of like really excited, like, oh wow, this is going to be really cool.
Yeah, they kicked Kurt Swan off the book.
Exactly. I would still wonder, like, well, what's he going to do?
Yeah, but that Kurt Swan Superman, man, that look was fire. I like his rendition.
Going to Gardner Fox, he was responsible for the original Justice Society of America. He was responsible for the Justice League of America. DC let him go. He went to Marvel, worked on Doctor Strange for a couple of issues. Didn't turn out so great. He went to Skyworld. He had to go to Skyworld to write some horror stories for them. I mean, that is quite. And the guy was an established writer in the 1930s. He came from the pulps.
Yeah,
that's quite an interesting career turn there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but do you think that if he was alive today and all that, I mean, with the modern technology and all, I think he would have still been doing some crazy business, probably independent, killing it. Back then it probably wasn't that easy.
I mean, if you are a guy like Gardner Fox, you go on Indiegogo, or you go.
Right.
Well, now you would, He'd be doing Kickstarter every few months.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the kind of thing you're no longer dependent on these big publishers. But back then, if you were not at Marvel or DC, where were you? I mean, I don't imagine Skyboard could pay him the kind of money DC paid him.
Oh, absolutely. It's a shame, right? How they just send the old guys and just kick them to the curb. Hey, guys, thank you for what you did. Bye. I mean, and they're lucky if they even get a thank you.
Yeah, if at all. If at all. And there's still this rumor that the real reason why Gardner Fox was kicked off the DC premise was because he and some other guys were talking about forming a union because they wanted healthcare benefits for all these years of service, and the first thing that happened was basically get them fired.
So, which family were they talking to? Because I've been watching the New York versus the Mafia from that era, and they're talking about unions too. All right, which family were they talking to? They scared the shit out of DC. That's what happened. They're like, hell no! Bye. You trying to get us killed?
Yeah, that story of DC is a very interesting one, and there are connections to the organized crime in the foundation of DC.
If it's in New York, I'm sure it was.
How this all came about?
You couldn't survive. You couldn't survive without them.
No, Harry Donenfeld had a printing business, and you have to ship paper across the border to Canada. And what the organized crime did during the Prohibition say, well, basically, what would happen if you put some bottles of alcohol in those boxes?
Oh, yeah.
And he said, well, sure. What are you going to pay for that?
Like, well, we won't break your legs. How about that? All right. How many? Wild times. There's so much unexplored history in all of this, and how it all strangely connects. It's quite amazing, and I love going back to do research on these kinds of things. I haven't written a comic book column in a while, so this is going home, and it's fun. It's coming out soon. Yeah, man, I see the excitement. I'm excited. I mean, you're throwing already some good teasers out there. You got Dave's brain just moving, it seems. He's like, God.
He likes
that questions, but we can't blow up your collar.
He likes that original Green Arrow story.
Yeah.
He's eating that up. I mean, who doesn't, though? Again, you're talking about a kid training an adult, a kid mentoring an adult like that.
But
pretty wild.
But think about it. You're a kid reading comics, and there's a kid who's teaching an adult how to do something. That's empowering. That's absolutely. Like, oh, that's cool. And it's like and it creates a real symbiotic relationship. It's like,
and what also happens is after this Native American guy became his surrogate father, he doesn't have the same bond with Oliver. Oliver is at best a big brother to him, but not a father, which already changes the dynamic between them and Batman and Robin. Because Robin is basically yes, dad. He's always running after Batman. Roy is nothing like that.
Yeah.
And which also explains, so this is also, I'm not going, because my piece is going to be very long anyway, but there's also an interesting dynamic on that, because when Roy turns to drugs, O'Neill has him say, well, basically you have a mentor, and he goes away to chasing women all of a sudden. It's exactly in Danny O'Neill's script. And that basically brings him to the drugs.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to see that played out, man, on a cartoon assigned, that run, that particular story, that whole Speedy thing.
Mm-hmm.
An animated feature, I think would play out really cool with a strong message.
Yeah, it's it's actually a very dark story, and they go back to revisit it later on. And Oliver tries to make his peace with Roy, and Roy wouldn't have him.
Well, you know what? It would actually look. We've seen the Arrow TV series, but he's not entered the cinematic universe. So it would be really great if they took that storyline and used that in the cinematic universe.
It's different enough that they do it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that would just be a really nice, because while maybe Green Arrow can't, I can't see a trilogy being made of Green Arrow movies, but that's a whole storyline. You could weave that through the Justice League and a couple of Green Arrow movies, where you could get something like that.
Or there was a script going around some years back called Supermax, which was a story about Green Arrow. Is already established in the movie. There's a movie script, and he gets framed, and he's revealed, and he's put into prison, where all the guys are. He has put into prison as Green Arrow.
Oh yeah.
Which is also actually a story that comes from the comics, more or less, because there's a story I found, a multi-part story as a backup, where Oliver Queen goes he's a journalist by now, and he refuses to reveal a source. He's a columnist, and he refuses to reveal a source on an organized crime story he's written, and he's sentenced to prison for that, because the court finds him in contempt. And this is this interesting story where Oliver basically says, well, basically, if I reveal my source, everything I fight for as a superhero is null and void. So I have to go to prison. That's an interesting, powerful idea. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much backstory and so much forgotten history about these characters, which I find very interesting. If you mind for a screenplay for a movie, go back to these stories. There's so much history. What I really hate about these guys like Josh Trank who come onto a property, and either if they do it or don't do it, but the first thing they say, well, basically, I put a new spin on it. I find this incredibly arrogant. There's a reason why this character is popular. Make your own character if you want to put your own spin on it. But if you take a character with so much history, take your time and look at the character.
Even some characters that don't have a lot of history, what worked originally was so well that, because sometimes it's a case of somebody feels that like, I have a particular story I want to tell, so I'm going to shoehorn it in on this character. He's only had maybe like 30 or 40 comics, so I'm going to shoehorn my story in, and I'm just going to jettison everything about that character.
I still find it incredibly stupid that Zack Snyder killed off Jimmy Olsen in the Batman v Superman movie. Oh, he's a CIA agent now. Oh, let's kill him. It's incredibly stupid. What a wasted potential of a character.
Yeah, but do you see that's also because if you had something like the way that Kevin Feige runs the Marvel universe, he's not the one writing and directing the film, so he has the big picture. And he gives people a certain amount of freedom, as long as it this has to go from A to B. Now, you can do whatever you like in the middle, like have fun, but it's got to be here with these characters intact. So, but introduce someone, do what you like. But that is, you say, it's like Zack Snyder didn't see Jimmy Olsen in his movies. Exactly. He just saw him as superfluous. He wasn't thinking about, here is a valuable asset to a valuable IP that could actually has potential in of its own. So
exactly. That's why it's a bad idea to give a director the keys to the kingdom. If you plan if you plan a universe, if you plan a trilogy, that's perfect. But if you plan a universe, don't give a director the keys to the kingdom. Have a producer there, like Kevin Feige, who plans several properties all at once.
Yeah, but that's always been the weakness at DC. They don't have that. They've never had that. So,
guys, some news came in, right? I wasn't even aware, but Hulu and Marvel have unveiled the first teaser for a Hellstrom comic book horror series.
Yeah,
holy
I saw
smokes!
that this morning. Yeah,
how cool is that? That's going to bring in some cool features of the Marvel U into TV.
But to burst your bubble there, it's only one season because they already canceled it.
Oh damn!
It's already cancelled. It's only one season.
they Swamp Thing this, man.
That's how fast we move these days.
They got Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
One season, you're done.
So it's basically 8 episodes, and then we are done here.
But so has anyone heard? I heard a whisper, maybe about a month ago, that there was a rumor that Swamp Thing was going to be revived, but for HBO.
The way I heard, Swamp Thing was coming to CW that first season, but not revived.
Right.
Yeah, so the first season's coming to CW, but without being revived, I don't know. I mean, I would hope so. I love that first season. They finished it quickly because of the issues. It's a shame. Yeah. And we had that Bernie Wrightson looking Swamp Thing. That's why we loved it. Damn it.
But that goes just to something that Chris brought up earlier. That's another show that actually got cancelled because of financing issues of where they were shooting. It wasn't anything to do with
the quality of the show.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, I think the showrunner on that was Mark Verheiden, who's just an amazing writer. Like he's one of those few people who I've enjoyed his TV shows, his film scripts, and his comic books. Like he's managed to, like,
I got something for you, Chris. I got something for you. Jack Kirby Museum has stated that Green Arrow and Speedy have been shown in a photo in the Stargirl TV show.
Oh, very cool. I have to check out that show now. Very interesting. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for the info. Yeah, but I also find interesting the other rumor is that the Kevin Feige likes the Netflix Daredevil, and he's thinking about bringing him back. That would be interesting. Because if I like one character in all the Netflix shows, it was Daredevil.
Well, I think that's been a conversation they've been having, where I think that, as far as I know, Netflix control the material that they produced, but it's ultimately the characters are all Marvel's now, so there's nothing to stop them from just hiring those same actors.
Exactly.
It's funny you bring the Daredevil up, and today Jeff Loeb seems to be in a lot of trouble.
He is in trouble, or is he in trouble?
Well, a Daredevil actor accuses Jeff Loeb of cutting Asian character storylines. It was actor Peter Shinkota. And he goes, Jeff Loeb has been cutting Asian storylines because, quote unquote, no one cares. Wow.
See, I mean, the only flaw I would have with the Netflix, or the major flaw with the Netflix shows was, and I didn't see this really with Daredevil, but with their other shows, like particularly with Luke Cage and Iron Fist, there was an amazing amount of padding. Like it was like you've got 6 episodes worth of story here, but you're stretching out to 12.
Yeah.
And so if they've got other characters that they could have used to have expanded that space out, build up other characters, make it more interesting, invest in that, I would have actually said, leave them in. Like that's the stuff that actually, would make that more interesting.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And I wonder how how we are going forward with these kinds of concepts and series, because now you could do 2 or 3 part series. Why not? I mean, you can have a season like the British do, like you guys do over in the UK. I understand the Doctor Who season of 3 episodes or 4 episodes sometimes only. So why not have a season that's
they've never done that with Doctor Who, but they have with Sherlock Holmes, where you literally have 3 movies make up the entire season. They're loosely connected, but there's 3 standalone stories, usually with a little subplot, and it's mostly character material that's a character subplots that lead through the 3 films. But you know, that's a format I really like. You can get into something. You can watch a nice meaty like hour-and-a-half movie, and rather than just like sitting there and watching 4 episodes back to back, not getting much out of it.
Yeah, you don't have to invest in 10 or 12 episodes of a show you perhaps like or don't like. Because I couldn't get through the first season of Iron Fist. I couldn't, because it was totally boring, and the character was very unlikable.
Oh, it was such a tough slog. I did make it through, and I actually even watched the second series. And only because they did the Defenders, and I thought like, oh, that could be cool, and it was just
yeah, it could have been better. I wanted to see Power Man and Iron Fist proper.
Oh yeah,
that's what we should have gotten, and we didn't.
I thought that's what they were building to.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, all right, I get it. Like, you want to cancel, but from what I've heard as well, the decision to cancel the way they did was actually Netflix's decision, not Marvel's.
Oh, really? Netflix. Wow.
But I think that, you know, if they just wrapped up one more season, but just had made it a Power Man Iron Fist season.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Combine the 2 shows into that, or have them, you know, part 1 on Luke Cage, part 2 on Iron Fist. If you wanted to keep them separate, that way you could definitely keep everybody hooked into the series as the franchise.
Bring on board the writer like Terrence Winter to show run it, and you know, give it some element about, you know, both the action and the humor.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, why not have this hero for hire concept? That's quite interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Not even Power Man. Call it hero for hire. You know.
Little dirtier than the Marvel Universe. Here are heroes who want your money.
Well, they need it. I mean,
that's not a bad idea.
I mean, you know, it was. That's what I always thought it was. You know, maybe it was just like, it was just a bit of subliminal racial prejudice showing its ugly head. But the idea that Luke Cage was the only hero that had to hire himself out to make money. But I mean, but the premise, though, but it's a very realistic one of people need to make money. Like, you know, being a good guy doesn't actually make money.
Pay the bills,
yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, villains make money, so learn, little heroes.
Yeah, Peter Parker sold photos of himself and delivered pizza to make money.
Yeah, and going back to Green Arrow, I mean, another revelation for Green Arrow. During the famous O'Neill and Adams run, Green Arrow was there to spout liberal garbage, basically, about the left and the men. The first thing Elliott as Megan did was to say, well, basically, I have no money. I'm poor. I need a job. And so all of a sudden, talking leftist propaganda wasn't paying the bills. A hero needed a job, so he started his public relation business. He was going back to being an entrepreneur after O'Neill had taken him away from all these corporate ideas. And now all of a sudden, the hippies had to work for IBM. It's quite an interesting idea.
He worked for IBM.
Which is true, basically.
So funny. I'm digging this.
Now he's working for AT&T.
All right.
Now he's working for AT&T. Yeah, basically. Yeah. He's working for the men again.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, they are one and the same, basically. Jeez. Awesome, guys. It's been an awesome conversation. I'm having a lot of fun here with you guys today.
We haven't heard your pitch, Al.
Told you my Matrix. That's my
that's my
Matrix.
His was the Matrix Terminator crossover.
Right. Yeah, man, because it has to happen. I mean, and then if you want to throw a comic book character in there, how about humans created OMAC? To try and help us and fight. But being technology.
Brother,
that was the other concept I was thinking about. How awesome would be an OMAC movie? You do it today with our technology.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Very forward-thinking script from Kirby there.
I always loved
the idea of isolation, how isolated technology makes to the faceless man. Wow, brilliant forward-thinking ideas from Kirby there. Again, shout out to the friends from the Kirby Museum. But I wrote a column about OMAC and Mr. Miracle, actually. Check it out in Comic Crusaders. But it's basically also about OMAC. And the first issue of OMAC is still one of my favorite standalone issues by Kirby. It's a fantastic story.
It is. Yeah. I bought the hardcover, the single issues. I'm still looking for the figure, and I'll tell you that
I have the figure.
Years before, I had a mohawk. You have the figure?
I have the figure.
Oh man, I gotta find me one.
I've got the Commandy figure as well.
You got Commandy also? Get out!
Wow,
nice.
How cool is that?
I was really upset though. They're not in the same style as the New Gods, and they did the New Gods line where they were really very Kirby. It's like Mr. Miracle, Big Barda. Even the Superman one, they did that Superman one that fitted in with that same style.
Yeah.
And I was always really upset that they never did the Forever People and the Super Cycle. Like I'm still holding out for the Super Cycle.
McFarlane got the toys now. Let's see if they give him some access to these New Gods figures.
But as long as he does it in the Kirby figures, though, he's got to do it in the Kirby style. Like I'm not interested otherwise.
I think he'd respect that. It would look cool, because he's respected the Bruce Timm style. So if they say New Gods Kirby style, I think he'll kick ass, because the Timm ones do look great, just like the animated series.
Yeah,
I'll give him credit. They look fantastic. Yeah, man. But OMAC is my shit. I'm telling you, I gotta find that picture when I used to have a mohawk.
Yeah, that was a great.
I had a mohawk.
Especially the first issue. The first issue was brilliant.
Oh man, Dave had a mohawk. Did you not?
Yeah, it looks awful. Do you know what? I it was one of those things where for about a few months I thought, oh, it looks cool, and then I look back and I see photographs. I go like,
what the hell did I do?
So dumb. Oh
man, that's funny. I had every hairstyle, and now I'm just letting it grow. See, I try to comb my hair for you guys today.
Spider-Man had a black costume, so here we go. Sometimes you strike out.
Yeah.
Now, Spider-Man black costume is, I love that whole joint for a while, man. I really dug that a lot.
I bought that issue. What was it, 256? I was there when it came out. I think it was 256 or something around that.
Yeah, it was. They crossed, because it's between that and the Web of Spider-Man #1. Where people kind of always argue, no, this is the proper, first. Nah, bro. The Secret Wars, bro. That's where Venom came in. That's the proper.
Yeah, it was
an interesting time. She-Hulk became a member of the Fantastic Four because the thing was doing his quote-unquote own thing.
Yeah, that's cool too. I always love that about the Fantastic Four. That when they used to swap around certain members, there was always the four core. But that 90s, what did you think in the 90s when they replaced all four? What was it? Ghost Rider, Wolverine?
That was 3 issues. And that was
man.
Fun. That was a really cool story. It was like Arthur Adams drawing those characters.
Yep, he's the man.
The Mole Man, all of that. That was really good.
Yeah, R. Adams is amazing. Yep. That was a fun. I believe I have those issues still in my boxes. Those. I kind of kept certain things that I enjoyed, because that was so different, and that's when Ghost Rider was really hot. Along with Wolverine.
I loved the third issue.
Very, very popular.
I loved the third issue of that, because on the cover it was like it had the because at that point Punisher was huge. And they had this cameo, like Punisher cameo inside, and it's literally like 3 panels where Punisher's in an airplane and he sees there's trouble over there. Oh, it looks they don't need me, and just veers off.
Between the Punisher and 3 panels.
But they just called it the most gratuitous. They actually advertised it as the most gratuitous Punisher cameo ever.
It's true though. Punisher was all over the place as well, man.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Interesting time. Interesting time.
Yeah, man. Uber violent characters were the shit for a minute.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Great. All right, guys. It's been a great chat, and everybody that's
As
been
always.
tuning in, because we're doing our. Yep, I have another podcast scheduled too. It's a busy day for Mega in the Comic Crusaders world.
You're always busy.
Yeah, man, we got to keep it busy, brother. So, check out that Jeff Loeb information. I sent you. It's pretty interesting what was being said there. And, you know, who knows nowadays? So many things are coming out about people and shit that happens, bro. It's wild. Wild times, wild worlds. And, and hopefully the next time we'll chat, we could show you pictures of that alien ship they found.
Yep.
2020 can't get no more crazy. Like I shared not the other day. I'm just waiting for a kaiju to pop out to sea right now.
Did you see there was a I saw it being tweeted out early this morning. There was a photograph, and against the sun, there's a spaceship that was spotted.
Oh my god!
But it's totally square. It's basically it looks like the Borg. The Borg are about to strike.
They're coming. Maybe Bradbury and them has something going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For real, they know something. They knew something. All right,
Okay.
everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Appreciate it,
guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
man.
guys.
So put that to our outro right here. Let me share this screen again. Right. So
Everybody stay safe out there. Bye-bye.
Yeah, everybody stay safe.
Yep. Be good, everyone.
Undercover Cape
Bye.
Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the IPC and Undercover Capes. Make sure to visit our website, undercovercapes.com, and also visit the International Comics Collective on Twitter.